What are the biggest difficulties for an English speaker trying to learn French? I'm a French teacher online and a lot of my students are English natives, and this is what they struggle the most with. Number one is pronunciation. The R sound and the nasal sounds like o, on, are the most difficult for an English native, as well as silent letters. Most of the time they know how a word is spelled and they try to pronounce every letter, which is really not something to do in French. Written French and spoken French are very different, and you really have to learn this from the beginning, how to really pronounce and read French. Number two is obviously the gender of nouns. We have two genders in French, feminine and masculine. There is no specific rule to determine which noun is masculine and which noun is feminine. You can screenshot this picture because some endings can determine whether or not this is masculine or feminine. But apart from that, you really have to practice. And after a while, you will memorize. If it's le, la, un, une, that will determine the form of the adjective also. The third difficulty is all the verb conjugations. In French, there are a lot of tenses and moods, and I would recommend to start with the present tense, but also to learn very quickly some past tenses and one future tense. We don't use that many different future tenses, at least the near future. Then move on to the conditional real quick to be able to express some hypothesis and some wishes. And later you will look into the subjunctives, but basically you want to go gradually, but work on it. It's a non-negotiable. Another difficulty, especially amongst beginners, is to distinguish between formal and informal French, when to say tu and vous, because this concept does not exist in English. I would say the fifth difficulty is very common, is the construction of sentences, especially the questions, because we have three different ways of asking a question, whether it's formal and mostly written French or informal, and a lot of students will tend to use the inverse, which is too formal in most situations and would only be used in written French. So when you ask parlez-vous français, we don't speak like that. We would say est-ce que vous parlez français or vous parlez français. Number 6 is more like a vocabulary problem, is the false friends, those words that they look like they would be an exact translation, like actuellement, actually, but they actually don't mean the same thing. I have a reel about this if you want to check it out. The last difficulty I would say are prepositions, because they are not exactly equivalent to English. So on is sur, but when you use on in English, you don't necessarily use sur in French. Let me know what you struggled with if you've ever learned French, or if you're currently learning French, what are you struggling with? What do you find difficult?